What's up, YouTube? Bandit back with you again with another install video on the 2021 Street Glide Special. So the Street Glides, and honestly a lot of other models, have a massive gaudy front fender. So as you see, it sticks out quite far from the front tire, is quite wide. And overall, I mean, from a side view, the fender doesn't look bad, but it is very thick, very wide, and it does stick out quite far. So today I'm going to solve that problem with the 19-inch Reveal Wrapper Hugger front fender from Advanblack. Kind of a mouthful to say, but I'll go ahead and show you that fender now. You can kind of see it in the background over here. But here's that front fender. So a lot more slimline, a lot more narrow. And it hugs the front wheel a lot better. So in all transparency, this is the part that I was referring to that had a slight bit of damage on it when I received it. Sorry, I should have put in the video me doing the touch-up paint to it to correct the damage. However, I'll show you where it was. So right along this edge here was a little bit of chipped paint, and I went ahead and put the touch-up paint on it, and you can't even really notice. And again, like I said, that was in a spot that you're never really going to notice anyways, because that's down by the forks and you'd really have to be looking at it to see it. But I went ahead, if I can get it to focus, you can kind of see how it's not as smooth right there. That's due to the touch-up paint filling in what needed to get filled in. But so overall, I'm happy with them solving the issue with sending me the touch-up paint. And we'll go ahead and get this guy installed. So first thing I've done is I've put my jack underneath the bike. I don't have the bike up in the air. I only lifted the bike enough to get it straight up and down, and then able to turn my front end forward. That way the fender is straight up and down and facing me, not out to a side or angled to the left onto the kickstand. So this allows it to be straight up and down. The weight of, I mean, there's some weight on the stand or on the jack, and then there's still weight on the tires as well. And my kickstand is still out over there. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a towel and we're going to drape it over top of this fender, and then we're going to work on getting this fender taken off. Be right back. All right, so there we go. We have a towel sitting on the fender now. And to take off this fender, it's really pretty simple. So you've got 4 Allen key style bolts, which are going to be a 1/4 inch on either side. The back side of these, the nut is actually welded to the fender itself, so you don't need to get anything back there to hold the nut as you take off these bolts. However, on the new one, I will have to get a wrench behind there to tighten everything down. So all we do is just crack these 4 bolts loose and take them off. All right, so I'm gonna set down the camera now, and I'm gonna get the bolts the rest of the way out while holding the fender. All right, now that it's loose, I'm just gonna lift up slightly and roll the fender forward. And out. And so that's why I put the towel on it, because I'm rolling the fender through the forks and I don't want to mar up this fender. All right, so additionally with the fender, you get all of the hardware to install it. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And this little bag right here is the spacers for the new fender. All right, so there's one. And there's two. So those are the black spacers. So what those are used for is, I'll take you over to the stock fender. So the stock fender, if you see, the brackets that hold it angle out right here. And that allows it to mate up to the mounting holes on the forks. This new fender, as you see there, is completely vertical. So you're gonna add those spacers between the fender here and the forks to fill the gap for the mounting screws. Additionally, in your hardware, you're gonna have 4 new bolts that are gonna be longer to incorporate the, if I can get that to focus, to incorporate the spacer, as well as should be 4 washers and 4 nylock nuts. So all we're gonna do now is grab the new fender, roll it into place, and then start getting our hardware installed for this fender. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is grab our front fender and get it put or set into place here on that front wheel. So now when Advanblack sends you this, they send it with these rubber protective edge guards. So I'm choosing to leave them on while I get the fender put into place, and then I'll take them off after I finish the install. So all we're gonna do is get it slid over that front tire, and we're just gonna set it down on the tire itself. Now I'm just gonna roll it back to get it into position with those mounting points. And then again, just set it back down into place, or on that front tire to hold it. This would be an easier job if you have 2 people, someone to hold the fender while the other person puts the mounting hardware into place. However, it can be done as 1 person, which you'll see here. You got to be a little bit more careful because now you're trying to hold it and get your holes lined up all at the same time. So first thing you're going to do is take 2 of your bolts and get them started in these holes, but not all the way through the back. Now I'm going to take the spacer, I'm going to slide it between the fender and the forks. Now I'm going to push the bolts through the spacer, but like I said, not quite out the back. Now it's going to hold that spacer in place. I'm going to lift the front fender and then try and get that bolt through the hole in the front fender. There's one. I'm going to do the same thing with the back, kind of rock it a little bit forward. All right, now both those bolts are through. I'm going to take a washer and a nylon lock nut and put them on the back side. And right now I'm just going to go to finger tight just to hold everything in place. Alright, now that that side is in place, I'm going to do the same thing onto this right side. But actually I'm going to reposition the camera. And I'm going to try and put you right here. So hopefully you can see this gap. So here's the fender, here's the fork, backside of the fork mounting holes. So I'm going to lift this front fender, I'm going to slide, or correction, first I'm going to get these two bolts started. So there's through, I want back just a little bit so they're not sticking through. Same thing with this back mounting hole, back just a little bit. Now I'm going to lift the fender out of the way. I'm going to slide this spacer into position. And there it is. Through the spacer. And through the spacer. Now I'm going to lift it up to get that hole aligned for the fender. And there we are through. And there we are through. Alright, so now, if you guys can see, so there is that spacer, there's the bolt coming through. So all we're going to do now is washer on the back side, and then nylock nut to finger tight. Hold that. And then same thing with the back one. So sorry if my arm is blocking the camera. Alright, so now that those are into place, these holes on the Advanblack fender are kind of oblong shaped, so they're not perfect circles, and that gives you some adjustability with mounting. So you can tilt the fender a little bit forward, as you see there, or you can tilt the fender a little bit back. So it's not a ton, but it is just enough. So what you want to do is follow the line of your rim with the contour of that fender. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape now to pull this guy out of the way, get a better view of that line. So there it is, kind of matching that line. Check the back side. So about right there is pretty much matching that line and matching the back line. So now the nuts on the back side for the Advanblack mounting hardware is going to be a 13 millimeter, and then your hex head is now going to be a 6 millimeter hex head or Allen key. So now I'm going to start tightening this down, and then I'm going to reposition the fender to make sure it's still lined up the way that I want it before I go completely tight with it. Alright, so still have some adjustability there, a little bit tighter. I want it to have the adjustability but hold it when I release the fender. So that continues to fall back down as soon as I release the fender, so a little bit tighter. There we go. So now I'm going to check my lines again. That there looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten that to snug. All right, and then like a car where you do the star pattern for putting on a wheel, I'm gonna go cross pattern. So I've done this one. Now I'm gonna do this right side back bolt, just to kind of tighten everything up, and then move to the front bolt, and then move to this back bolt. All right, so now that I have that other side, one last time I'm gonna check my lines. Move this piece of tape. So that line follows pretty good, that line follows pretty good. And then of course, I mean, the fender starts to kick out here, so that line is gonna stop for what you're following along. All right, so now that backside's tight. Come in here, do this one. And now the right side front. All right, torque specs for this is gonna be 16 to 20 foot-pounds. So typically, all torque specs are gonna be a range, and that's due to not every torque wrench is calibrated the same. Well, they should be, but in reality, they're not exact, right? So if you put it at 16 foot-pounds, you may be plus or minus a foot-pound. So you could be down at 15 foot-pounds. So typically the way that I do it is I will set whatever my torque wrench is to the middle of that range. So that way, if I'm +2, because my torque wrench is slightly out of calibration, then I'm up to the max of 20, or if I'm -2, in this instance, I'm down to the minimum of 16. So right now I have my torque wrench here set for 18 foot-pounds. Now we're just gonna torque it all down. And there's 18. All right, and there it is. Fender is installed. We will go ahead and get these little rubber bumpers off. And there it is. So as you can see, Fender is not nearly as wide off the tire as what the stock Fender is. Yeah, you still have a little bit of a gap here at the front, but that's to create distance between the tire and the fender itself, so you don't end up rubbing one against the other. And then here is the side profile. So now you completely see the rim. You've got no fender blocking it, where the old fender came down to almost even with these mounting points as it curved around. So one, it makes it a lot easier to clean the wheel, but two, it just looks a lot more streamlined overall on that fender, or on that front tire. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about this 19-inch reveal wrapper hugger front fender from Advanblack. I think they did a phenomenal job. It gives you another option. There are other options out there for these wrapper hugger front fenders, or these wrapper front fenders, low profile front fenders, whatever you want to call them. There are other companies that make them. Advanblack, I've just had good business with any part that I've bought from them, with their paint matching. I think they would do one of the best jobs. A lot of other companies, you'll just get that fender as a primer color, and then you'll have to get it paint matched, where Advanblack, you can order it like this from the company. So again, their website says 6 weeks lead time on any paint matched part. I received this front fender in exactly a week from the time that I ordered it. But like I said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. I think it looks really good. Definitely adds another aspect to the bike for just creating that whole slimline look. So here's a little bit farther back. Get down at an angle here. But cool. You guys got any questions about this? It's a pretty straightforward install. You don't because it has the nylock nuts on there, you don't have to worry about putting any sort of Loctite, because that's what the nylock nuts are for. They're going to lock that nut into place. And then, like I said, 16 to 20 foot-pounds for the torque spec on that front fender. But if you guys got any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section down below. If you like the videos that I'm putting out, hit that like button for me. If you haven't subscribed, or you're new to the channel, consider subscribing if you like this sort of content of installs and rides. And as always, stay safe out there, keep the rubber side down, and I'll see you on the road. Bandit out.